The designs of H.R. Geiger are simply things of legend. Somehow, this human mind was able to imagine and create such alien-feeling works of art, and they were the inspiration for several movies, books, and video games for several generations. We all know about Alien and its many sequels, but he also inspired the movie Species, the video game Darkseid, and today's topic of discussion, Xenophobe. Xenophobe was originally a 1987 arcade game that was a modest success for Bally Midway. The stand-up cabinet could be played by 3 players, each of whom had their choice between 3 unique characters, which was dependent on which set of controls you were standing at. The leftmost joystick could be Embrace, Dr. Quack, and Cole Poupon. The middle stick had their choice of Mr. Fogg, Colonel F. Truth, and Dr. Utterbay, and the right stick could become Mr. EZ, Dr. Zoidbergs, and Colonel Chicken. During gameplay, each player could be in an independent room from the others, thanks to the screen being divided into 3 tiers. It was a unique experience, and one that was dripping with fun, arcade shooting action, and oozing with xenomorph horror. And for whatever reason, Xenophobe was ported to almost every Atari console that was available in the late 80s and early 90s. But today I want to look at the 2 versions that I have, the Lynx port developed by Epyx and released in 1990, and the Atari 7800 Pro System port that was released in September of 1989. So without further delay, let's get into the universal horror of Xenophobe on the Atari Lynx and 7800. Let's start with the 7800 version, as it came out first of these 2 ports. Pro System Xenophobe was developed by Blue Sky Software, and was one of the late 9 releases on the Atari 7800 that was part of a late push in making the console viable. The other 8 games being Alien Brigade, Meltdown, Ikari Warriors, Midnight Mutants, Moto Psycho, Mean 18 Golf, Ninja Golf, and Planet Smashers. As much as I love the early arcade stuff of the Atari 7800, there is just something really special about these late, wild releases on the console. And Xenophobe is sort of right in the middle. It's both an arcade game, what Atari and the Pro System was known for, and a fairly modern adventure for the system as well. Much like the arcade release, the 7800 port constantly has 2 layers of the screen visible, even when playing in single-player mode. While I would have liked to have seen the game use the entire screen, this port is faithful to the arcade, and it's 3 tiers, so I won't complain too much. And yes, I know the arcade had 3 tiers and this one has 2, but limitations, you know. The graphics aren't bad for the 7800, but the game is lacking all of the character of the arcade version. Instead, you play as a bald man, and even in 2-player mode, there are just 2 bald men. The intro ship, transport scene to the various space stations, and the long ship that tallies your bonus items and score all look really nice. There's just something about this version of Xenophobe that brings a smile to my face. And it might be because the Xenos themselves look really good. The facehuggers are small but easy to identify, and so are the various stages of alien growth. However, there are fewer versions of the enemies in this version over the arcade or the Lynx version. But the ones that are here look good. The environments themselves look fine, but get repetitive rather quickly. You'll find yourself looking at the same few rooms over and over again, but really it's the only downside to an otherwise graphically fine Pro System game. The sound effects are typical Atari fare, and I'm sure you've heard them all before. None of them are bad. I'd call them tried and true sounds, honestly. But it does make the game a bit boring to listen to. Outside of the intro song, that is. You have access to 4 different weapons. The pistol, that is well-rounded. the laser gun that shoots fast, the electricity gun that really packs a punch, and the gas gun that is just, well, it's strong, but it just sucks in my opinion. The range is horrible, so I usually avoid it. All the other items are really just there for points, so you'll pick up everything you come across to improve your score. Jumping around and shooting works well in this version of the game, but I found the biggest enemy to this version to be two things. And neither of these two things were the disgusting alien infestation that we're tasked with clearing out. First off, jumping around the space station is often fun. It's just faster than the slow walk that your character otherwise does. Not to mention that you often have to duck and move as well, to hit the lower enemies and to avoid other enemies, and this makes your movement even slower. So jumping around seems to be the thing to do. That is, until you hit your head on the door. This will usually result in your character being knocked back onto his butt, and sometimes you'll even drop your gun, which leaves you defenseless. Now this happens in all versions of Xenophobe, so this isn't unheard of, but it's no less annoying in the 7800 version. Your second biggest enemy is sometimes your weapon will just explode when you drop it. Certain enemies can even knock the weapon out of your hands, and this results in you being almost completely defenseless. You can punch the dirty aliens right in their dumb-looking Xeno faces, but you'll end up as alien chow before too long by doing this. I personally don't know why the guns have to blow up like this. When it happens, you just feel cheated, especially late in the game. It's a death sentence, plain and simple. Otherwise, I think that Xenophobe is a blast to play on the Pro system. It's by no means a perfect port of the arcade game. It's missing a ton of content that made the arcade version so cool. But this is yet another game on the Pro system that the console desperately needed. And it's not a bad game. I actually had a lot of fun with it, if I'm being completely honest. That's why I'm going to give this port of Xenophobe on the Atari 7800 a score of 3 Pro-Line controllers out of 5. It's by no means the best game on the console, or even out of the 9 games I mentioned earlier. But it's fun, and it's worth picking up at a decent price. Who knows? Maybe Atari will be able to grab the rights and give it a Plus system release. How cool would that be? But speaking of cool, I can't wait to talk about this next version of Xenophobe, because hot damn, it's a lot of fun. Onto the Lynx port of Xenophobe by Epyx. They took a very different approach to the game, and I think most people will prefer this one. While the Pro System version had its charms, it was missing a fair amount from the original. Here, you have a selection of 9 characters to choose from, and they all have the silly names and designs that Xenophobe was known for. The characters do tend to play alike, but the variety is appreciated. Some characters also start out with a handgun, while others pack some heavier artillery. But the key difference that stands out immediately are the presentation and the graphics. Xenophobe on the Lynx just feels like a bigger, more intense and action-packed adventure. You have a female officer sneaking along the title screen before being spotted. I love this small introduction, and the Epyx version is full of cute little sequences like this one. The music is great here too. But some of the gun sound effects are just a bit too loud in my opinion. They started to get on my nerves after a short while, and they made me want to avoid the laser gun completely. Luckily, the other 3 weapons were nowhere near as abrasive on my ears. The Xenomorph enemies themselves are done quite well. The smaller facehugger and pod variants are low to the ground, and don't feature much detail. But the larger Xenos are nicely detailed, many of which have some cool facial expressions that change a little bit. I love how the rounder Xenomorphs cover their face when being shot, and the enemies that peek at you from behind doors are just oozing with personality. Speaking of ooze, you'll be facing so many more obstacles in this version than the one on the Pro system. You have dripping ooze on the ceiling in some levels, sentry drones that follow you around, and even little harmless droids that roll around the space station doing their jobs. And the space stations and levels have great room variety as well. You'll be inside and outside the buildings and the crafts, in rooms full of laser grids and locked containment fields. You'll have dynamic computers that track the infestation within the building or ship, and you can even interact with some of these. This gives more purpose to the items than just a score. You need disks to override functions on certain computers, keys to unlock the before-mentioned containment fields, and you'll even acquire things like jetpacks and other items to help you avoid damage. But even if you take damage, the game isn't over until all 9 heroes are dead. Which is good because, well, Xenophobe is not easy, not even from the start. If you aren't effective at taking out Xenos, you'll be surrounded and killed before you even know what happened. Face huggers will swarm you with multiple holding on at a time, and enemies will come from all over the map to kill you. It wasn't uncommon to have 6, 7, or even 8 aliens in a room, giving you what for. Xenophobe is difficult on the Lynx, and it's a game that demands you spend time with it to learn what all the items do, which guns are most useful, and the best strategies for clearing out the buildings. Hey, sometimes you have to activate the self-destruct, and that's okay too. Epyx made something really cool with the Lynx version of Xenophobe, and it's one of the best and most fun games that I played on the handheld yet. Comparing this game to the green and black screen of the Game Boy had to have given a ton of Lynx owners joy back in the early 90s. And it still brings me joy today, let me tell you. That's why I'm going to give Xenophobe on the Atari Lynx a score of 4 Model 2s out of 5. It's really good, with only the high difficulty and occasional abrasive sound effect really holding it back. If you have an Atari Lynx, or a Pro System for that matter, then Xenophobe is not a bad game to play. I've always loved the premise, and the execution on the home ports were fantastic in these cases. But if I had to choose just one version, I would say get the Lynx. But you've heard my opinions on these 2 Atari ports, so now it's time to hear from all of you. Have you played any version of Xenophobe before? Do you enjoy the game? Which version or versions have you tried? And which one is your favorite? And also, should I grab and review the Atari 2600 Redbox version of the game? Let me know your thoughts on all this and anything else you have to say in the comments down below. And please, leave a like if you made it this far in the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. We cover all things Atari here on the channel, so hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I upload. But with that, it's time to wrap up yet another video on the channel. I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a man who has to now poke at this weird egg thing that's shown up here at the Atari network. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. But until next time, remember to stay classy, Atarians.